It's a casual game that shows you how to explore a dystopian world when you're drunk. Because the real world follows the natural laws of the real world, fish can only swim in the water, sheep can only make the bar sound, people can't hold a bottle of wine to go out to sea. And all the things about the size, material, and attributes of the things that bind and tie all the living beings. But when drunk, everything becomes different. All the rules of the real world fail, there is no longer the inevitable logic of cause and effect, and everything somehow morphs and interacts with you for no apparent reason. At this point, the dizziness and confusion is also just an alternative perspective on the world. The player is very fond of jellyfish, and on the way home from yet another drunken night out, the player sees giant jellyfish, and they are close at hand. This time, the player is determined to get the jellyfish to play with him. The movement in the wine barrel as the water ebbs and flows represents the player's real-world staggering walk as well. Throwing logs to counteract their own movement is like the player suddenly pushing against a telephone pole and using the counterforce to help them move forward. The tornado's upward rotation to explore the surrounding situation is like the player spinning in place to look around. The fish's moving forward on behalf of the player is like a friend carrying the drunken player back home. The player can give directions, use right-click, but since the player is drunk, he might give his friend the wrong direction home. Of course, the friend is carrying the player on his back, and it's a very difficult and wobbly walk. The jellyfish represents the location of the home, which is of course the home of the don't lets, and the player is so drunk that he can't tell which way is north and which way is south. At each location, the player goes up and knocks on the door, and is then rightfully turned away. The blob next to the jellyfish is like the player's heart, following the falling, breaking, and finally losing its voice. After each rejection, a veil is placed over the player's eyes with a phrase from the player's heart, which appears and disappears, signaling that the player is getting drunker and the world in front of them is getting blurry. However, after each time the player is turned away, the player will restart, Archie to reset position, and move on to the next jellyfish. After interacting with every jellyfish together, the player's heart is in the right place and they are too drunk to travel any further. So wherever you go, turn off the lights on the spot and sweeten your dreams. Game over. Throughout the game, the player moves through a pinkish-orange mist. Everything in the distance becomes covered or obscured, and only by looking closer can the player tell if it's a pile of wine bottles or a gathering of fish. Even the wine barrels that serve as borders are white in the distance, only revealing their original dark red color when they get closer. The terrain and environment design also references Zelda's triangle field principle, with the jellyfish as the largest triangle landmark, the fish and fog in the air as the medium triangle cover, and the water surface as the small triangle interaction point, which can effectively limit the player's field of vision when exploring in the waves, and focusing on the area in front of them and the towering jellyfish landmark. Once disorientation is lost, the player is also able to rise to higher ground, see the overall pattern, and continually determine the direction of travel. Of course, if the sense of maneuver is lost, the player is also able to reset and restart from the drop point to continue exploring. The overall atmosphere of the game is one of abstraction, giddiness, and chaos. There is no mandatory guidance, no life limitation, and the paths to complete the objectives are diversified. The player's exploration and operation are free, and the player can advance the game and see through the story in the way he or she likes.